Hi guys, this is Heather with Creativity by Heather BE. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be showing you a card using mainly the Brutus Monroe Deco foil. So I'm going to use a beach scene. I'm also going to be using some awesome embossing powders and some media paste from Brutus Monroe. So I decided I wanted to create a beach scene, and I wanted to have the sunrise, and I wanted to use the Deco transfer foil sheets, which these are new at Brutus Monroe and they're fabulous. So the ones that I'm going to use today are sunrise. So I'm using a stencil, and what I did is I just took a pencil and gently lightly outlined where I wanted my sun to be. And I made sure that where I'm inking, it's going out further than the actual line. So that way, when I foil, the rays will come from the sun. So I'm using abandoned coral, squeezed lemonade, and carved pumpkin. And I'm putting the squeezed lemonade and the carved pumpkin and abandoned coral very lightly on the background because I really want the sun to be able to stand out. And I really just wanted a background so it wasn't white when I added on the transfer sheets. So once I have everything inked up, I'm going to use the Deco Foil Transfer Gel, and I've used this in another video, which I'll link here, and this stuff is wonderful. If you are foiling with a laminator, this stuff is great. You can use it on stencils, you can create your own stencils, and once it dries, it's going to dry clear, and then you are able to put your transfer sheets on it, run it through a laminator, and they will be gorgeous. So I'm just using a palette knife and adding the Deco Foil Transfer Gel on. And I had thought about masking off where my sun is, but there was enough of a room around it where it wasn't really necessary. So I was just really careful as I was putting the paste on. And I will say, when you are using this paste with the stencil, make sure that you have your stencil taped down really well. As you can see, I have a lot of purple tape around it. So once I've got the transfer gel where I want it and it's smoothed out, I'm going to immediately clean off my palette knife, and I'm just using a baby wipe. And then I'm going to lift up my stencil, and I'm also going to off camera put my stencil in a sink full of water because you don't want the stuff to dry on your stencil. So you can see I've got my rays, and you'll notice when I set it down here what I mean by the rays actually touch the sun, where on the stencil they don't. So I wanted to make sure I went a little further out than where the sun was for the stencil. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the purple tape, and I'm going to set this aside to dry. Typically, I let these dry overnight. This one, I probably dried for a couple hours, and you can see once it's dry because it's clear. So it's ready to be foiled. So what I'm using are the sunrise foil sheets, and look how gorgeous these things are. It's gold and reds and some silvers, just beautiful. There are so many gorgeous Deco Foil transfer sheets from Brutus Monroe. I encourage you to check them out and just see what all they have to offer. So many beautiful foils. So what I'm doing is I'm putting just a regular sheet of cardstock in a piece of parchment paper, and that's just going to act as a shim to make sure it feeds through my laminator. And then I am laying a piece of the Sunrise Deco Foil transfer sheet. I am going to actually lay it on horizontally, so that way I wanted my stripes on it to go across so it kind of matched the horizon. So once I run it through the laminator, I'm going to pull it out of the parchment paper and just peel it off, and to reveal the gorgeousness of this foil. So beautiful. And it's only going to stick where I had the transfer gel, and you can see how beautiful that is. So it went right over the Distress Oxide inks, and now I've got my sun, I've got my horizon. So now the next thing I need to do is work on the water and the sand. So I'm using Brutus Monroe masking paper here, and I've used many masking papers, and I have to say this one is definitely at the top of my list, if not my favorite. I picked it up when I was at the store there in June, and I'm not even sure why, because I had some others, but I'm so glad I did. And so what I did is I just freehand drew out the waves. So I wanted one wave to come up on the beach. I didn't want it to be flat. So what I'm doing is I'm going to do the water first. So I'm laying down the mask to cover up where the sand would be. And then I am going to take the water mask though and use it here in a moment to line it up just to make sure I've got everything lined up. One of the reasons I love this masking paper is because it's sticky enough where it doesn't peel up when you're trying to use it on your project, but it also isn't so sticky that it tears your project or pulls things off of it. So I did also take some purple tape and tape on the horizon. And what I'm showing you here is I actually combined 3 Brutus Monroe embossing powders. One of them is the Mermaid tail, which is right there. Alabaster, which is their white, and an Icicle, which has a little bit of a sparkle in it. I combined these 3 into an empty jar that I had to create my water. So I'm taking my embossing ink and I'm just putting it right onto the paper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and remove both of my masks before I emboss, because I don't want to heat emboss my masks to my paper and then I can't get them up. So I'm going to pull those up, and then I'm going to use the embossing powder that I created. And at the actual Brutus Monroe store, they have an embossing bar, which I have a picture of on my blog. And that's kind of where I got the idea, because you can go in and you can create and mix different embossing powders. So I decided to do that with this, and I love the way it came out. So I'm just going to heat set this, and you can see how gorgeous that is with a little bit of white in there. And then I'm going to go ahead and mask off the water that I just heat embossed. And this masking paper will not pull any of that off. It's not going to rip it. It comes off great. So I'm going to go ahead and cover that up so I can do my sand. For the sand, I'm using a Brutus Monroe Sandcastle embossing powder. This stuff is so much fun. You'll see as it goes on, it looks just like sand. It has that same texture. It's just such fun to play with. Such a great summer. And I also have a couple Christmas beach stamp sets, which I'm excited to use the same embossing powder for those as well for holiday cards. So I'm just going to go ahead and put my Sandcastle embossing powder on there, and look, immediately, even before it's heat set, it looks like sand. And I do know that this did just come back in stock on the Brutus Monroe website, so if you're interested in it, go grab it up. And there you can see this gorgeous panel with the deco foil and the embossing powders. So what I wanted to do is, in a kit, the June kit, and this is available on the site, I believe, as well. This is the Brutus Monroe Media Paste, and this stuff is awesome. It has a consistency similar to the gel, but a little bit thicker. So I'm just using the palette knife and I'm dabbing it on because I wanted to give the effect of the foam. When the water hits up on the sand, it kind of leaves that little foamy area. And so I wanted to give that effect. And this stuff is great because it will stay and it will dry white instead of drying clear. And it also gives you that texture, and it doesn't chip off. It dries very quickly and it stays that white color, and there's no chipping. It's wonderful. So for my sentiment, I went back and forth on if I wanted to put the sentiment on the outside of the card, like down on that right hand side where the sand is, or if I wanted to put it inside. And I ultimately decided to put it inside. So I am using the Super Sentimental stamp set from Brutus Monroe, and I'm going to use the Hello Beautiful. This is an awesome sentiment stamp set. If you're looking for one sentiment stamp set that covers a lot of different occasions, this one is it. And it's great because some are small, some are big, they're different fonts. Definitely check out this stamp set. So I'm going to heat emboss the Hello Beautiful on the inside, and I decided to use that same embossing powder that I created with the 3 earlier that I used for the water for the inside, just to kind of tie the front and the inside together. So I'm going to sprinkle on my heat embossing powder, heat set that, and it just gives it kind of a subtle blue look, and you can see the shine in it. The Brutus Monroe embossing powder is wonderful. I highly encourage you to check it out if you have not tried it before. So I'm using some Nouveau liquid glue adhesive, and I'm going to add my panel to the front. And I did have to put something heavy on this. I edited that out just to make sure it was down well. And that's the card. So you can see the gorgeous shine from that deco foil and the media paste, and then the inside with the embossing that I created. So that's the finished card. I hope you enjoyed this. Definitely check out the Brutus Monroe website if you have not. They have fabulous, innovative products. This deco foil line is amazing. I highly encourage you to check everything that they have to offer out. I do have links below to everything and also on my blog. So thank you for joining me and have a great day.